Hi, this is Bob Weiss. I'm the host of Shaking Your World. Cheers. Welcome home, folks. Yet another episode of Shaking Your World here from the wonderful Shakers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. With us today are two of our clients from last night, and they spent the night in the very haunted Dead Hookers Penthouse. So we have with us Cody and Alisha. They're from Chicago. And we're here to talk about a couple things. One is that not just the ghost tour that they're on, and another is the penthouse stay that they had last night, but even that little glimmer of the Cream City Cannibal Tour that they had, which is interesting to me because, first of all, we've long established that the vast majority of people that take that tour, serial killer aficionados, are attractive female, mid-20s to 40 years old, and this obviously is representative of that. And a little further, this young lady is also studying behavioral sciences and has an interesting future in front of her with a governmental agency. Mm-hmm. There we are. So where do we begin? Let's talk about maybe the penthouse day. So what happened last night, if anything?
Okay, there was a lot of activity, actually. The tours were awesome. Definitely had a vibe here, and on the tour, everything that we saw and experienced was very positive, and very supernatural at the same time. I would say that the tour that we first started on was the death tour, which was at night. We went down to the basement, and there was a freezer there, but as I believe her name was Liz, who gave us the tour, amazing girl, by the way, and all the staff here is awesome. There was a freezer, but the next to it was like this really dark, like back passage. And I heard a voice as she was speaking, and it said over here, but it wasn't like, it was saying it was a male, but he was whispering it and kind of singing at the same time. So after the tour, me and her took a video of this, the back part of that by the freezer, and I was like, could
where
I heard the voice, and I was just to take a picture and see. So the fifth picture we got, we found an orb, and it like flew across our camera. It was just me and her standing there, so it wasn't anything that could have did that, but something supernatural. It was very.
Everybody else had already gone upstairs, or they were still.
Everyone was gone. Yep.
So
it was crazy. That was our first experience of the night. But then the rods that they used, they were politicians, right? Every time.
Yeah.
Even upstairs when we used them later during the night.
It's
crazy.
It's interesting because like you're holding them, but you're not really holding them tight. They just kind of sit in your hands.
You don't control them.
No,
at all.
I was looking up at the ceiling and she was asking questions and they would just move and it was so weird.
So crazy. So that was my first experience with everything. And then what was yours about the death tour? What do you think about that?
I thought it was fantastic.
And the Dahmer tour, it was
the Dahmer tour was
cool.
very cool. So we just kind of walked down a couple of blocks and she gave us a lot of history about Dahmer himself. And it was just
The average boy next door, right?
yeah, he's just completely, he was totally, he seemed normal, I guess. And
Upstairs, I want to know much more about that penthouse. So tell me.
Okay, so we got up there last night. We were really interested in seeing who was there with us. And with my past of like serial killers, when I was 13, I'm 28 now, I was so infatuated and had such a really hard time like being like, why do I like this? But I loved it. And so ever since then, and this tour was so much more to me than just, okay, we're going to see these people, but I get so into depth with the mind of the criminal, and like I read Robert Ressler's books and so many more, and just I've gotten much so into their minds besides just, oh, we're coming here and he's weird. It's way more than that to me. But we did reach out to Dahmer upstairs, and that's why I said that, because I do feel like this was a very significant part of his life and his being with the last like year, I guess, that he was before he was incarcerated. So we reached out to him and Molly, and we asked multiple times if there was anyone else up there with us, and no, there wasn't. It was just them two. So Dahmer sat in the blue chair upstairs in the penthouse, and then Molly was always in the corner on the couch. She was always just sitting there.
In her window.
Yep, always the same. Even this morning, we did the same thing. We had asked multiple questions. I was freaking out. I ran across the room, and I was like, no way. She's like, take the rods from me, because I can't deal with this. And I was like, that's awesome. So that was the first part of our night. I think we passed out around 3. ish,
3:30 or 4.
when all the activity started. I was hearing shuffling on the floor in the bathroom, and she was like, no. She's like, stop. You did too. But there was someone in there walking around, whatever, and I believe that was a very significant part of the building. That's where they found the remains of that prostitute. So there was someone in there just walking around or something. So we fell asleep, we woke up. Cody, I will let you take over.
So last night when we were doing the tour upstairs, before we stayed the night, one of the people that were doing the tour, I think he put some money under the pillow on the bed.
Everybody saw him do it.
Yeah, it was like,
It's
it was
weird.
$5. He left it under the pillow, it was fine.
All in one. So.
So, yeah, it was all ones. So, I went to pull the sheets back and get in bed or whatever. And so I see the money, I take it and I put it up on the dresser. All five,
crazy.
all 5 singles were up on the dresser.
All 5.
All
Okay.
5. So I woke up this morning.
And I heard her too. I was like, what are you talking about?
I kind of turned over and I was like, what the fuck? Oh, all right.
There was
There was a dollar bill right next to me in bed.
Just a
Like,
single
when I
one,
rolled over.
just
Just $1
one.
bill. Just one.
out of the 5.
So that was my weird experience.
So it was
this
still
morning.
4 on top.
Yeah.
There was still 4
On the
top of
dresser.
There was
Sure. Cool.
$1 bill
Well, that's
sitting right next to me in
interesting.
bed, and it was.
All she said was okay, and I'm like, Cody, what? I'm like kind of half asleep. I'm like, what did you just say? What's up? And I just went back to sleep. Didn't think anything of it.
No, it was. So that was my experience. That was very weird.
Yep, it was insane.
Huh.
Very.
Now, you were telling me a story about how when you took a bath this morning.
Yes. So a little bit after that, I took a bath in the bath up there. How could you not? So I was washing out my hair. Okay, we'll go back. So I shut the door to fill the tub up. She went down to our car, but she wasn't in the building at all. It was just me. So as the doors closed, I heard something talking. I couldn't make out what they were saying because the tub was running, but it was definitely a definite voice, and I was just like, okay. I opened the door, got in the bathtub. I was like, hey, Cody, and I just kind of yelled out at her, and you weren't there. So
Nice job.
it was just weird. So as I was washing out my hair, I felt this presence, and it was like a very, like I'm there and I need you to know I'm here, but I felt it and I looked up and it just like felt like someone was standing by the door, but I had the door open at this point. Cody wasn't even there. She was gone for like 45 minutes while I was taking a bath. So that was very cool. It was very presential. Like it was just like, what? So awesome. That was my experience this morning. Yeah. So it was very cool. This whole experience has been awesome. The vibe here is just so crazy. So awesome.
Nice. Okay, so the psychology of the serial killer. I mean, you touched on this, but you kind of glossed over real fast. You were 13, now you're 28.
Yep.
If you want to tell us what happened when you were 13.
Well, not to get into too much detail, but I was always alone. My mom left when I was 7, and my dad died in a car accident and had a brain tumor. So I was an alone child. My brother and my sister moved back to Illinois, and I was in Florida at the time with my mother. And I don't know how it came about, but when I was 13, I was in middle school at the time. I just came across like a true crime like article, and I don't remember who or why, but I made a huge book of biographies of every serial killer that I could. My mom thought it was super weird, out of whack, and I moved back in with her after she kind of came back into my life for a few years when I lived in Tennessee. And ever since then, I've just been like, I don't know what it is, and then I had a lot of other things happen in my life that were just like, okay, you need to dig inside these people's minds and maybe make the world a little better and figure out why. But that's never gonna happen. But we could try. So my whole 3 years of high school, I was in Florida. My mom was always gone on work, but she was on vacation. She would always leave me home by myself, so I had a best friend. Her name was Deidre, and we were always inseparable. We were together through everything. Getting in trouble to just kind of going to school or whatever. So I found out about 2.5 years ago that she and her mother were murdered. They were hacked with an axe in the middle of their living room. It was the end of November of 18, and I got a phone call from my friend Kayla. She was like our little circle of high school, and she was like, hey, did you hear the news? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, because they're so close. I actually went down to visit them a year before this, and I saw Deidre. She gave me a sweater, and I still have it, because she meant so much to me. It was a big part of my life at that time. And she was like, Deidre and her mom were just killed last night. And Like, he's like, no, they weren't. But she told me in gruesome detail, like, how they were murdered. And I guess, so my friend Deidre's boyfriend and the mother's boyfriend, all 4 of them lived in the same home at the time. So mom's boyfriend comes home that night, tries to open the front door, can't open it, goes to the back window, breaks in, finds my friend Deidre's boyfriend laying on the bed. He overdosed on heroin, but he was still conscious. He wasn't really conscious, but he still had a pulse. He was still breathing. And then he goes into the living room, and he sees them both just laying in a pool of blood, and they were just dismembered. It was just not a really decent sight to see. So he called the police, and then they rushed Joe, which was a guy ODing in the bed, whatever, and then rushed him to the hospital. He's still alive. I feel like I need to go talk to this man because I haven't had any closure. Why would you just randomly do something like that? So I felt like I always wanted to pursue my interest, but I feel like this is something that's like, okay, this happened to you, you need to just go. It was just a little something extra to just be like, you're in the right path, kind of sort of thing. So yeah, that's my story behind it. And even still to this day, I will just all day long, just crime. I won't ever steer away from it. I love my medic stuff, but
So you're a paramedic by day in Chicago,
I am in Tinley Park
which
on the
has to
fire
be
department.
challenging to say the least.
It's interesting. I actually was working for privates for about 5 years. And I mean, you see some stuff, but you see your dead bodies, whatever. But the 911 side, I've been on for about 2 months now, and I've seen a lot of things, yes. It's very interesting. It's a very challenging job. I love it. I wouldn't do anything else, but I want to go further and do the other stuff. So it's more schooling, but I'm totally willing to do it.
Cool.
It's a path.
So
Yeah.
what's more important to you in the things that you get into? Is it the serial killer portion, the true crime portion, or the ghost portion? Because they're all different.
Yeah, I believe it's all of it. It's the infatuation of why are you doing this? Nobody just goes and just kills a bunch of people and dismembers their bodies and is just okay with it and just walks around like nonchalantly like nothing happened.
Well, there are some.
It's the criminal mind that I'm interested in. Because it's not like us, we're just sitting here.
Sure.
But
Cody, how about you?
yeah.
I like the serial killer portion, the why do people do what they do. But I've dealt with supernatural experiences my whole life. My mom told me about all her experiences when she was younger. So I like the spiritual side, the ghost side, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Very cool.
Anything you else want to talk about? Any further thoughts on something that pertained to your great experience at Shakers yesterday?
Fantastic.
How do other stories compare to ours?
Oh, there are tons of stories.
Was anything that we said today familiar with anyone else's story?
Yeah, people hear voices downstairs all the time, and it's not unusual to get someone touched as well, kind of a thing. And upstairs, it's interesting because you're telling that story about that, and I've got a flashback to one of my former girlfriends that would be upstairs taking a shower or something as well, and thinking I'm there when I'm actually down here.
Oh, God.
And she, I'd walk upstairs, and she's like, "Well, you never finished talking about that." I'm like, I've been downstairs,
Yeah, about what?
And so that's really familiar to me. And other people as well have had that conversation with different people, both male and female up there. So that's a standard thing. Having the impression that something is in the room with you, my God, I got my own stories about that. So that's all the time. Did you hear you heard about the shuffling thing? Did you hear stilettos walking around at any point? Because I hear that almost all the time.
It wasn't that. It was almost like someone was scrubbing the floor in the bathroom, but it was so localized that I was like, it's in the bathroom.
Scrub the blood off the floor?
Probably. It was really weird. It was like, shh, 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 shh. But then it would just keep doing it. I'm like, Cody, do you hear that? And it was like a good 5 minutes where I would hear it on and off, and she's like, please stop. I'm like, I'm not, because I hear it.
Being a paramedic, there's a lot of blood. So,
Yeah.
damn blood.
Damn it.
Okay.
Means everything.
Anything outside on the back deck? Did you venture out there?
We briefly went out there. It was cold. I don't like
was
the
out
cold.
there earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very cool.
Because right outside that door, so the back part of the kitchen and that door that is on the deck is where I found all of her remains. So,
Just sitting there? Or
No.
how did you find
There
those?
was a shack in the back of the building that never made sense. It doesn't conform to the rest of this beautiful building, and we do all these outdoor dinners up there, and you get more space for my cooking station.
Yeah,
so that had to come down. And as I'm ripping that shack down, as I'm there, the floor is kind of bouncy. I said, well, I'm here. What the hell?
Oops.
So rip that up, and there was just massive bones. And the ME had determined that half the bones are domestic animal and the other half were human female, late teens, early 20s. And then we did the back history, and that was Molly Brennan. So,
Wow. Ugh. What did you do with that? Did you just call the?
well, we
FBI?
called, because we do a lot of things with the feds, so we called the Bureau, and then they called MPD, and they called the medical examiner, and he came and he took him away. But he brought him back like 11 or 12 weeks later. And told me his determination, or their determination, but he also said they only went back for 50 years for cold cases. These are about 70 years old, so 2001 minus 70, it's Prohibition, 1930s, right? So all that, made sense. I would have put them on the wall, quite frankly. So tibs, fibs, no hands, no feet, no cranium, but I would have put them on the wall. But I had guys working on the crew with me that were Native Americans said, we insist you must give these a decent burial. So we buried them behind St. Mary's Hospital overlooking Lake Michigan.
Wow. So she was obviously dismembered.
Uh-huh.
Did they? Okay, yeah. So I had a question last night. Did they know who did that to her?
Yeah, well, we put things together that she had a childhood friend named Harvey, and it certainly all indications were because his father was her sponsor up there, and then there was a story about how he had discovered his father here.
That's right. That
Put
was
the
in
parts
story.
together, and then wanted her to leave, and she didn't want to go. So, in a fit of rage or passion, people do crazy things.
Absolutely.
So, yep, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Did they convict him, or it wasn't a thing back
He
then?
disappeared.
It was,
He
he
disappeared.
disappeared. Wow.
So he had a very influential family, a lot of money, but you tamper with some of the Capone property, and it obviously doesn't work well for you, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we hope you come back and see us again sometime, and maybe revisit that Penthouse day.
We will.
But I'm thrilled that you came up.
Yes.
It's been a fantastic trip.
And Bob, you've been awesome.
Yes.
Like, you've been so welcoming, and it's just been really refreshing. And you do a great job here.
Honored, of course, it's the staff that really makes everything happen here. I've had a phenomenal staff, and that's really the driving force of Shakers. But again, thank you so much. Cheers to all of us.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thanks for bringing us your home.